In my most recent lab, we had some really interesting conversations in the share circles in the morning. And out of one of those conversations, I said the words, I keep coming back to the lab because it makes me a nicer person. And you need a little context to understand that statement. It was a bit about like the world of sales and marketing and the right exercise or the wrong exercise or the right stretch or the wrong stretch or the right medication and the wrong medication. Everybody's got an opinion. And the opinions are good. Of course, that's what creates dialogue and debate, and it's wonderful. But what happens in the lab for me is I get confronted with things that I couldn't possibly have fathomed or imagined before. And I'm such a scientific brained person. I love reading research. I stand behind evidence. I also am sensitive to the fact that research has limitations. There's only certain things you can study. There's variables you can't control for. So I'm aware of that. But it's really easy to get stuck in this kind of mindset of hard science, and this is the right answer. And you go into the lab, and what you think gets completely turned upside down, and it humbles you. And it also puts you in a space of utter awe and fascination. And that to me is actually science. Reading the paper with some technical jargon, all of that. I mean, it's very, very useful, but it kind of reinforces sometimes what you already think, or you can put your author's spin on it, right? But when you're in the lab, like it's right there. You can't spin what you see. And an example that I like to give is a lot of times with like joint replacements, but the one that I really like to give is one time I was in the lab and I saw a scar, like a vaccine scar, like my parents had. And I walked up to the table and I was like, oh, look, a vaccine scar. And one of my friends said to me, could be a bullet wound. And he was right. Like it could be it wasn't. Well, we didn't have evidence for it to be a bullet wound later, as we got deeper. But you think you know what you're looking at. You're like, oh, that's a scar, and then it's just some folded skin. Or you're like, oh, look, there's going to be a joint replacement and then there's not. Or you're constantly like thinking you know something and then saying, what am I looking at? And that's really a critical experience to have, especially when you're reading research, because you really want to look at like, what am I reading here? What did the intervention actually do? How did this go? And do I understand it completely? Do I think one thing, but maybe it's something else? I hope you join me in a lab and get confronted with what you think you know and what you don't know. It's my favorite place to be. Best lessons on earth.